Hey everybody, Ken Coscia here. I am so glad you're here. Thank you for watching. We've got a treat for you today. If you've been following me on my channel, you've noticed I'm doing this series of conversations, also somewhat interviews of fellow Silva Method instructors who have incredible stories, how they've transformed their lives and the work they're doing. And I've got a treat for you, so make sure you stay to the end because today we're going to explore with our guest today the science of spirituality. In other words, we're going to look at spirituality in a very practical, very pragmatic way through the eyes of the Silva Method, through that lens, if you will, because it's a tool, as you may know, has been around since 1966 in the public's eye. We're still going strong. I've been doing it. I just celebrated my 54th year with that. So
Congratulations.
together, thank you. And the sneak peek at our guest for the, and we'll have some fun with you. But anyway, our guest today, his name is Manish Patel. Let me say a little bit about him before I open up and then we'll start our dialogue. I met him back in, I think, 2020. You'll forgive me for not remembering the exact date. And since that time, the thing that really stood out for him is he's really heartfelt. And I'll also add, though, throughout my history, I've been working with certifying instructors for better than 35 years. I'm the guy Jose Silva selected out of 1,000 global instructors to do advanced presentations globally. This happened in 1984 when I was still a young dude. And I've met so many people. I've had hundreds and hundreds, maybe more, of wannabe instructors go through training. And so often they're wonderful people. They're very heartfelt. They're genuine. This reality is it's not enough. In today's world, especially, and it's never really been enough because you got to have some skills and to reach people, to communicate, to facilitate. And this man, Manish Patel, is one of those people. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this with him. He's got skills too. He also brings a professional background with him that very few Silva instructors globally have. I mean, some do, of course. He's an occupational therapist. He's a certified hypnotherapist. He's done an extensive work with neurolinguistic programming, all of which are somehow interconnected to the Silva method, more so hypnosis, because Jose started his research with hypnosis and positive psychology, and then he married meditation to it, and then he integrated he looked for common denominators in a dozen different modalities. Well, this gentleman brings many of those skills, that knowledge. So I haven't been in his class. I can only imagine the richness of what he has to offer with the tools, because admittedly, in our early days, we appeared woo woo, even though we got incredible results. Millions of people, over 10 million, have been through the program. But in recent years, part of my mission is, and the legacy I want to leave is more the science based. And that's another thing I really appreciate about you, Manish, because you bring that science base with that. So without further ado, please, Manish, say hello and we'll take it from there.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Ken, for that very kind and humble introduction. I truly appreciate being present, being here today on this full moon day, which is a great day I
Ooh,
think, yeah, today is July 10th, full moon, and great energies.
I love looking at the full moon, but admittedly, I don't buy into, I don't follow, like the full moon programming and stuff. But I love looking at it. There's just something magical about it. And maybe for those reasons. But again, I'm the straight man in the organization. I think I still am.
So, if I may, that is sometimes my intro to the science behind everything we do, because when we talk about the full moon, we know that on a full moon that the tides increase. All right. So the moon has the ability to affect the gravitational pull of water. It doesn't increase the amount of water in the ocean. The water is the same. The gravitational pull of water towards the full moon. Therefore, the tides are higher. Now, I often say to people, they say, oh, well, that's all woo woo and juju. I said, well, can you agree that the moon affects the tides? Yes. You and I are 78% water. Therefore, if it has a greater effect of gravitational pull of water in the planet, it also does the same with us, the water within us. And in doing that, it actually brings to the surface these emotions, hence the term lunatic. So this is the science behind, and we teach the glass of water technique. So this is the consciousness of water and how the full moon and the phases affects us as a body, as an entity energetically.
You're the first person to explain it so clearly and in a way that I can resonate with. Thank you. I get that, especially since we all know we're all energy. Everything that exists in this universe, we're interconnected.
Yep.
When I first started in 71, I admit, went right over my head. A lot of my own spiritual searching and growth, I kept hearing, we're all one. I liked it. It felt nice, but I could never really explain it. Today, it makes more sense to me in feeling because science has really come such a long way in understanding, as you said, that makes sense, this the gravitational pull, because often when we're using techniques for like mirror the mind or any tool for problem solving that Silva teaches, there is a point where you get into a state and you find where you manifest, co-create far more effectively, more easily than other times. So it seems like, if I'm hearing, understanding what you're saying, is when we get in alignment with this energy, whatever it is, and make no promises, it maximizes, optimizes the mental. I mean, you got to do the work. It just doesn't happen magically. But if you're doing the work, you're clear about your intention, you're doing your mental rehearsal, visualization of it, etc., it magnifies. Am I making sense? Am I
Yeah.
understanding you correctly?
100%. And this was my journey. I'm a born Indian, been taught by my grandparents and father about spirituality, meditation. I learned a lot of the ancient Hindu practices, but I'm also in that I'm an occupational therapist, I'm an ergonomist, I'm all about the science. And I think I come from this generation which was more about don't just tell me to do something because you said so. I really need to understand it. I love that famous line from Solomon, in all you are getting, get understanding. And I've always been that person as a personality that if I understand something, I'll be fully committed. But if I don't understand, if I don't resonate, there's always something that's putting me in resistance. And so even before I attended your class in Connecticut, way back when, I was very much into the healing, the thought sciences. I was very much into meditation. I was a big fan of Dr. John Sarno's work as a therapist, who's all about the mind-body connection. But it didn't quite click. I knew there was something missing, right? And I did a lot of this work, and for me, Bob Proctor is another thought science leader who talks about the connection between science and spirituality. It's a cause and effect; they're not separate. And then when I came to the class, even after studying, reading the books, the Silva Method books, all these other books, online stuff, because I was in the first class right after COVID. I was in the very first class after COVID. So there was no option to come to an in-person seminar. And the minute you posted it, I signed up. And even then, I don't think I've ever shared this with you, Ken. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the money then for the class. But somehow by setting that intention, having that desire, I all of a sudden got some contracts that allowed me to pay for being in that class. And it was like everything was falling into place. But by coming to the class, a lot of those dots got connected. I could just all these aha moments. You were talking, and I was sitting there, and I was asking questions. I think you remember I used to ask a lot of questions, but
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of the in person. You can't ask a book or an online seminar questions, and in our immersion seminar, it's me. It was me, you, and everybody else.
And let me add something, boy. A lot of takeaways there. Those of you watching, whether you're already a Silva Method graduate or new to this field, a lot of takeaways there. First of all, what you just said about questions. Research has shown, Harvard studies have shown recently that when we have context and understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, then the how to is so much easier and we're more effective. I love that expression because that's the proprietary process that Mr. Silva developed with the first. In fact, you mentioned Bob Proctor. I think you know, I'm not sure. I'm not surprised you attracted to him and his work. He was one of our earliest, I think he started before me at the same time as a Silva graduate. And when he did his famous masterminds that he'd invite people who paid him, I don't know, $50,000 to his home, and they said, I want to go further. How do I do it? He would recommend the Silva training, much like Bob Monroe would recommend people to the Silva training because they knew it was like what you said before. It connected all the dots. I hear this from people like Manish all the time. Oh God, the old man, he really put everything together in a simple, concise way. However, so the takeaway to focus on is when you know what you're doing and why, and you're clear about your intention, that's when I don't really believe in magic, but it seems like magic happens. When we get into that flow where it seems like the universe has got our back with that. And if I may, just want to add something as you remind me things. I attended a advanced meditation retreat for a week. And primary reason I've been going is to hear the research because they do a lot of research, university studies. And it was interesting about ice bathing. Now, anyone who is an athlete watching us, you guys are athletes, you know, and you as an occupational therapist, of course, ice helps reduce inflammation. There are a lot of benefits, but just to the adrenal glands and so on and so forth with that. And you often see, if you watch a movie, an athlete after the game, they're in an ice tub. It's been around forever, but all of a sudden it trended and people were selling, ice bathing tanks. So they did a study. There are two groups of people. One group, they said nothing about ice bathing. The other group, they told them all the background, all the research, all the value, all the benefits, what it does for you. And then everybody took ice baths. And at the end of that period of time, the group that they said little or nothing to, they got little or no benefit. And in fact, many of them, it downgraded their immune system. It's like it was bad for them, to keep it simple. But those that they explained and took the time to explain that, they got all those benefits and more. What I love about that is when I started in the early days, people said, boy, you Silva instructors talk a lot because we carefully explain and answer another takeaway, answering the questions, everything we're going to do before we do it. And then we integrate it in a beautiful dynamic meditation that we're doing better than 50% of the time. That's the difference that makes the difference. And that's what Mr. Silva brought to the world with respect to that. So really good one. Thank you for bringing that. May I just say one last thing? And I want you to talk about some of your background about pain management, because Manish works with this all the time professionally. You mentioned John Sarno. Now I know another reason why I like him. Way back when Sarno first wrote his, remember I've been doing this over half of a century. I read his book, I loved it, and I'd recommend it. When I do the advanced training called Silva Mastery, it's on the recommended reading. And then I had I had to have back surgery, had an injury I sustained. I used to be a crazy athlete, long distance runner. Anyway, I went back and read the book as a patient, and it made a difference for me. It helped more than anything. I still needed the surgery, but my recovery, my management of the pain, was amazing with that. And he's in the New York City area. I don't know that he's alive. I think he passed away one time. But he used to have a wait list of 2 years. That's how effective. And if you get the book, it's called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. He goes back before a lot of the doctors on the platform these days explaining the science of stress in your physiology and why it gets worse if we're in a stress state. Anyway, how about yourself? There's some things I know that you did when you came to the class in terms of pain management. Can you expand on that? What are some of the things that brought you to the realization you wanted to share this with the world, Silva Method?
It was the practical techniques that when you attend the immersion, you don't just come away with the understanding, like you said, right? And by the way, before I came to the class, I was practicing hypnotherapy. So I clearly understood that that education, that what you say when people say you instructors talk a lot, is is us cementing the understanding to the neural pathway, is us cementing the suggestions that we give in the programming that are safe to the subconscious, but to be able to open yourself up to that subconscious state of mind. Before I came to the class, I knew John Sarno's work. I knew what he was saying, that the pain is simply a distraction, that the body actually is not in physiological pain, but it is a distraction. And I had chronic pain to my knee after a soccer injury, ACL repair, two meniscal repairs, didn't rehab like I wanted to, wasn't running. Um, I had gained a lot of weight. The pain was so chronic, I wasn't sleeping at night. I had to take pain medicine to go to sleep. Then I would apply a compression boot. I had to apply, I would put on a compression boot just so there was this massage feeling, and that would give me some relaxation so I could fall asleep. Otherwise, there's this constant gnawing toothache type of pain. And then halfway through the night, I would reserve what I would call my super treatment, which was CBD oil, right? I was like, okay, if I wake up halfway through the night and I've got pain, I'm going to apply that, and hopefully that will let me go back to sleep. So I wasn't sleeping through the night. Over a period of time, chronic pain, pre-diabetic, pre-hypertensive. I had gained a lot more weight. I was miserable. I was miserable. It was affecting my sleep. Um, I was barely eating, but I was gaining weight. So my metabolism had been affected. Not realizing how much it was affecting my relationships with my job, with my occupation, with the people in my life, my kids, um, and it's really thrown off. But coming to the immersion, being able to understand, and the missing link was that awareness was all at the conscious, outer conscious level of the mind. And when by going through the Silva method, I was able to almost kick open the door to the subconscious and start to operate from that subconscious level of mind, the self-hypnosis state, which is really what we teach at Silva, right? And the science behind self-hypnosis by operating at that theta alpha baseline level, and how to access it at will, and then what to do. And then, so for all this time, I knew about Sarno's techniques, but a lot of people who teach Sarno's work and who go through that were, well, how do I do that? How do I make sense of those hidden emotions? What are they even? Right? And he has a lot of great techniques and journaling and other things. But with Silva, it was almost like every time you could access that subconscious level of mind. And what I did was, on day one, headache control. And I can still hear you saying it, hey, when you leave here, tweak these things, follow the instructions, get the programming, but tweak it. So that night I remember sitting at the Farmington Inn, and I said, you know what, I'm going to change the verbiage in this from headache to knee ache. And I did that, and I slept throughout the night, and for the remaining 4 days I continued to do that. And I put away that compression boot after I got back from that 4 day Silva immersion. I was not taking pain meds at night, and I barely used the CBD oil. Does that mean I eliminated the pain and the meniscal issue? Or no, it just meant I started to manage it better, right? Through self mind control, through uh, we talk about it in mental house cleaning, the verbiage. How did I stopped saying I have pain, and deferred it and reframed it to I'm experiencing pain, right? Because I started to realize how I'm programming my subconscious mind when I keep saying I have this pain, it's killing me. So the pain is, I'm owning the pain and it's killing me, and that's where the manifestation of the pre-diabetes, the pre-hypertension, the other things were coming in play, or I hate this pain. I can't, it's keeping me up all night. Well, no wonder, Sherlock, why you can't sleep overnight. So,
Uh,
and the practical techniques, from headache control to glove anesthesia to um, to the sleep control, the awake control, all of these things are practical tools that I left with, that I just started to play with. I just had fun with. I said, what? And I said, that. hello there, there's something here that works. Yeah, and you know, the nerd in me, I bugged you like crazy during the class and after the class, and you were so great. And again, that's what the instructors do, right? That's what we sign up for, to be there for people who are committed. And then the other genius of Jose Silva, which was the graduate groups. I say it as an instructor to this day. My favorite part of the Silva method as an instructor is the graduate group, because the science supports how, unless if you go to any 4-day retreat, motivational seminar, Silva Method immersion, the benefits are short-lived unless you are part of an ongoing, continuing community. And believe me, from day one in my class, I tell them this is the best gift from the Silva Method. The people that you connect with, from around the globe, I mean, we have people come into our group from the Philippines, from England, from India, and from around the globe. And you never have to explain yourself. They just get it. They're like-minded people who get that conscious vibrational frequency. And it's refreshing, it's ongoing, but it allows you to maintain the benefits.
Very well said. Boy, again, a lot of takeaways there. For example, the questions. Why that's something I'm really pleased about our program is our classes are more intimate. Everybody's a VIP. You're not lost in the crowd. Therefore, everybody has, even with 50 people in the room, which I've had, everybody has access to the instructor. And think about it, for those of you who may have read any book on personal development, if you have a question and it's not answered, people tend to give up, think they can't do it. And it could be a little simple question. Or who do you ask? You send an email and you're lucky to get a response from customer service in 2 weeks. And even then, it's called deliberate practice. When you get immediate feedback or an immediate answer to a question, all the studies have shown in high performance, what they call peak performance studies, that is the most effective way to learn anything. And that's always a part. You also mentioned our groups. What I say to people, this may not be for you. I believe the Silva Method is not for everyone, although it's been great for more than 10 million people on the globe with that. But one of the things that's so important is people go through any personal development, Silva, you name it, a name, and then they go back into the same environment, the same community, the same people. They're good people, people you love, and they have no clue. And if they start to ridicule, unless that person's super strong, the tendency, it's too easy to slip back into the old pattern because it's basic Maslow. We like to belong. We like to be accepted. It's a need we all have and to be part of a community. So that's why what he's saying is since day one, we've always gifted. It comes with our program, complimentary graduate groups. In fact, I've succeeded in organizing, as you know, and you're one of the guys. And as the new instructors get started, they do the same thing. Every day of the week, we have a graduate group practicing for 1-2 hours virtually. And you can go to one of them, all of them. And I agree with you. That's how I got sucked into it. I was the director of the largest graduate organization in the world for New England while I was still a full-time student at Boston University in the early 70s. And I found that it really made a difference for people because it gave them the opportunity to be with like minds and to express themselves with that. The other thing, I just want to go back to the pain management, for example. I know you read this book. The cover has changed. You have the new one, the new cover. That's how it now looks. This originally written in the 70s. It's a great book if you haven't read it by Jose Silva and Philip Mealy. So it's professionally written. And Manish, I know just from reading the book and watching videos, he's doing some of this stuff and getting results. Because with respect, I'm not an occupational therapist. I'm not a physician nor am I a psychologist. And in every single class, and I'm sure the same as you, there, depending how many people are in the class, there's always people who come in with pain, chronic pain that they've been living with. And by the time we finish the 4 days, and by the way, it's a 4-day training, not 3 days, not 2 days, not 12 hours of recorded videos that Mind Valley offers, although they're excellent if you resonate with that. But this is what Jose Silva's research supports, 4 days. And if you can swing it 4 days in a row, that is by far the best way to maximize, although it can be spread out and still work effectively. But it's one of the things that drives me is that people say, how can you do this? I'd be bored silly. But watching people go through that, I've had people come into the class with a cane and limping, and then for graduation, we give out certificates. They're walking up without the cane, and everybody's saying, Ken, look, no cane. Oh, yeah, because what he said before, those unconscious avoidance mechanisms, as Dr. Sarno called them, our emotions run our physiology. So yeah, there's an injury to your knee, there's an injury to my back, but we can more effectively manage it and accelerate the healing by getting into homeostasis, into balance, so the body does what it needs to do. And that's what we're really aligning ourselves with. You want to comment some of the things that maybe you did with the book? I know there's a whole bunch of things that you did, applied it, that maybe relate to what you do professionally.
With the book or the techniques?
Yeah, both. It's,
um,
I know it's
I,
hard where to begin because there's like 17 different techniques we teach.
well, the book, and I'm going to be honest and authentic. The book is great. I love it. It's a great starting point. It's what I had before I came to the class. Um, and if you have a chance to read the book, and if you're not able to get a class, it's a great place to start. And then you've got YouTube videos and other things. And I did all of that. But when you come to an immersion, 4-day immersion, you come away with way more than the book. You really then don't really get the book. And there are some things that, again, you don't get to ask the questions. There are a lot of people who don't fully understand some of the things in the book, right? And a lot of people have contacted me after reading the book. For example, that whole turn your eyes upwards at a 45 degrees it's a switch for alpha to trigger the alpha brainwave. Well, in the book, it's not that it was written wrong, it's just the way people perceive it, and it's been common. People will then meditate, close their eyes, and keep their eyes looking up. And then they're really not relaxing there because they're conscious and they're thoughtful of keeping their eyes at a 45, even with their eyelids closed. Then they'll contact me, or in the class, they'll say, I've been doing that and I just feel this in my stomach, or I feel off. And I said, yeah, but are you letting them down and relaxing? No, because the book says keep your go up. And that's the misconception, right, from the book. And once, as soon as I clarify it, things change. But the number one thing that I use, obviously, our long relax is something that we offer. Is the first meditation, the center, our long relax centering meditation is something we offer in the first as the first meditation, and then once you come, you get the recording. But I do a mini relaxed meditation. I teach a lot of my patients the science behind meditation. It's not this Zen, and it's automatically people say, I can't do it. The number of people who told me, oh, I can't meditate. You can't hypnotize me. And and again, the genius of Jose Silva, who we know that he researched the work of people like Carl Jung. We know that he researched the science, the rationale of hypnotists such as Milton Erickson, who's like the grandfather of hypnosis, and he incorporated in a lot of our techniques. you know and so, just in conversation or just by having dialogue, how easy it is to get somebody almost in a hypnotic trance state. Just when I say, hey, can I share a story? Sure. And we're talking, but I give a really impactful metaphor and a story, which is hypnosis, you know, and that shifts people's perception. It allows them to come into this state of awareness and acceptance that, hey, I can do this. And that automatically, and I won't get into it, you've got the brainwave scale behind you, but just being able to explain to people how we naturally, even when we go to sleep, we naturally fall from beta all the way into alpha and then into theta, and we do know how to do it. Our body knows how to do it. It's when we start to practice it, and when we can start to be programmed to at will access those states of consciousness and use the techniques at those states of consciousness. That's when we're really going inside, right? What spirituality, the science of spirituality, is opening the door to oneness. It's got nothing to do, and we definitely don't uh, dissuade people away from their religious practices. But it's allowing people to open that inward door of awareness, self-awareness. If, and I often say, if overthinking is that process that we do to the mind, the mental state that throws us out of harmony, then pain is kind of like overthinking to the mind, but pain is to the body. It's that distraction, that distractive neural pathway that we have allowed to become true and believed to be true, that we continue to travel on. And until we basically block that, and that's why ice and heat and those things work, because it masks and it blocks it. But when we can start to do that at a mental state with our mind and states of consciousness, we change things. Can I share a story real quick?
Yeah,
Glove anesthesia.
before you share the story, just to clarify what you're saying, the unconscious avoidance mechanisms are a term that which Sarno and countless others have found, is that it's easier to deal with the pain subconsciously than the emotions behind it that are driving it. So when you say distraction, that's what's meant by the pain becomes a distraction. It's like people who crave chocolate. It's not the craving that gets them into trouble. It's what's behind the craving that causes that. I would also add one other thing with respect. I know this is your background. I went through a professional course with Jose on hypnosis. So just to clarify, if I may, as your training director, is that Jose, the kickoff was hypnosis to get them into a state of suggestibility where they would learn faster and easier. But then when he became aware of meditation and Eastern philosophies, he married the two. And then when he became aware of biofeedback, brain science of the day between 44 and 66, he integrated that. And then when he studied some of the great psychologists, he found they were all saying pretty much the same thing. You're greater than you think. You have unlimited potential in your subconscious. He integrated that. So people looking on the surface would maybe debate with me, and I won't debate it, that this is hypnosis. And I would say, no, it's the Silva method, which was fathered by hypnosis and mothered by meditation. And that beautiful union produced this methodology that has a little bit of both with that. And so you can tell the story, and then I want to ask you a question about your practice and intuition, if I may, because I think that would be really valuable for those of you who are watching. So what were you going to say about it? Hand levitation? Why is it?
Well, hand levitation is a whole different story. That's a whole
Yeah.
different gambit, right? But glove anesthesia, okay? And glove anesthesia is this one, even when we teach it, it's a challenging one to teach to many people. But about a year and a half ago, had slipped and fallen on ice, okay? Not knowing that I'd actually torn a ligament in my wrist and partially ruptured some ligaments in my back, my thoracic spine. Immediately, I used the techniques. Glove anesthesia was one, mirror of the mind was another. I continuously used long relax that put me into a state of not getting into inflammation, right? And I still had some discomfort. I was managing it. And it wasn't till maybe a month or two later that the physician said, you know what, just for the heck of it, let's do an MRI, you know? And when they did the MRI, that's when they found that there were torn ligaments and those things like that. But the first thing that the physician said is, how do you not have as much pain, and how did you not have as much inflammation? And the only thing I could think of is all the techniques. And the doctor knew that I'm a Silva Method instructor and whatnot. He says it must be, the doctor said it must be the stuff that you do, right? And he was in full acceptance of the science behind meditation, and just similarly what it does to the hippocampus, what it does to the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, and shifting Silva. The first 2 days of Silva Life and Intuition Immersion is Silva Life, which is shifting from sympathetic into parasympathetic. Right? That's the boom. That's everything that John Sarno talked about. But there's actual practical techniques that help you do that. which is what I love. And then I will share this because you asked about intuition, and I don't think I've ever told you this. But when I came to the immersion seminar, I was more interested in the first 2 days for pain management and health. The intuition stuff, I was kind of like, well, I don't know about this stuff. I don't want to be a psychic. The woo woo part started to come in, and but you were very good at saying go with it, play with it, and I did, and I was blown away. I was blown away with the intuitive downloads. I was blown away with the observation of intuition amongst the classmates, and I left the 4 days with the thought that okay, the first 2 days made perfect sense. I studied it, and there's something in the intuition. Now I need to study that. And I started to dive really deep into that. And I started to bug you with hundreds of questions to piece together the science of intuition. And I'll let you say the rest.
Well, this is great for me listening to go on. Very different perspective. And some of the things that you're talking about in terms of the parasympathetic and sympathetic, because of your professional background, might be really good with our fellow instructors, just for background, for understanding, because there really is a science to what we're doing. Frankly, when we first started, we didn't have that knowledge, and Jose didn't. He was a visionary, way ahead of the times. I often say, I wish he were alive. But I want to go into the intuition aspect for a second. It's a key point. However, to go back to the books, I'm a great believer. It's a great way to start. A lot of people read the book, they get good value. To this day, people coming in who've read primarily this, there are quite a few. Is that how God changes your brain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it over here too. But the point is, as a courtesy to those of you who have attended the Silva program prior to 2007, we called it the Basic Lecture Series. And I feel responsible to say that it can be confusing. There's become so many copies of the Silva method and variations and condensations of the program. We all hear this all the time. It's confusing to the instructor sometimes, let alone the public. So all we did in 2007 was we had a rebranding of the name, because it's not a basic program. It's a very advanced program. And Mind Valley, we used to work closely with Vision Lakiani and his team. I know him personally. And from 2000 December of 2006, when we were at a meeting in Athens with directors from all over the world, and he pitched us because he was using the Silva techniques to build his business back. His story is true. He almost went bankrupt. He's a living example of it. And he's definitely a lover of the Silva method. So up to 2014. And he said, this is not a basic program. So that's where Silva Life, Silva Intuition System came from. We call it the immersion when we're doing it 4 days in a row. But we added a lot of Jose's advanced material, like connecting to purpose, holo viewing, a lot more, dare I say, spiritual aspects, if you will, that people love. So that it's not just the name change with that. But the other thing that Manish alluded to about the questions, no book is complete as a program. No book has the step-by-step guidance, the guided meditations, etc., with the instructor. Not just the Q&A, that's key, but that, and they're not complete. So in part, and all throughout, and especially in part 2, we'll call it intuition system, my favorite part, and I want to get something from you with this, is that's something that's better than 60% of the time. We go from 9 in the morning to 7 at night with 1 hour for food. And then, of course, we take pauses in between. And it's 60% experiential, practicing. And like he said, people are blown away. I never thought I had somebody just in the last immersion I did, a woman, her husband was there. Everyone's rocking and rolling. Yeah. And she was the obvious skeptic in the room, almost like, what are you doing here? By the time we got to day 3 and 4, she started smiling a little bit. But in day 4, graduation, I said, well, what has this meant to you? She says, right up to the end, I was a skeptic, but oh my God, she couldn't believe it. She says, I'm a believer now. Not because of what I said, or what Manish would say, but because of what she experienced. I can't even put it into words. So the point I want to make, and then I'm going to ask you the question. When he started to want to help his children learn faster and easier. That's what sucked me into it. I was failing at Boston University in engineering. I took the Silva program, applied the three fingers technique, the study technique, graduated cum laude, studying less, and I was full-time teaching in the Metro Boston area. They did all the business and detail work. So I taught Silva at night and on the weekends and during the day, student. That's what drove Jose. But in the early 50s, the children started, when they were in the alpha state, in this relaxed meditative state, they started anticipating his questions correctly. And they started saying, I know what you're going to tell us. And Jose didn't know in the morning. The child was saying, I know last night I was thinking about you. And last night Jose wasn't sure what he was going to teach. And that started happening repeatedly. And the common denominator was when they were in this quiet alpha state, we call it level. And then he thought, I must be onto something of more value than just memory improvement. And that was a big transition. That was a defining moment for our organization. Well, we didn't have an organization then. It was just working with the kids and neighbors. And then he started looking into parapsychology, what's become known as medical intuition. He was doing that with the children, but it wasn't called that. And I'm not talking about people who are physicians. I mean, that's really where we started bordering on potentially woo-woo. But nowadays, all the research shows, and even people who are skeptical, everybody has intuitive capability. There's constantly new neuroscience research coming out talking about the brain and intuition, and that's a whole nother topic. So here's my question with that. It's my favorite part. I get excited. You're a professional. You work with people therapeutically. So am I correct in assuming that, yes, you do what you have to do physically. Yes, we take MRIs. Yes, or X-rays or check. Of course, you want to do it both ways. But are there not times when you have an instinct, an intuition, if you will, a sense of what's really wrong or what really needs to be addressed? Then you physically check it and verify your intuition. At least that's what I hear from medical people, whether they be chiropractors or MDs. How about you, Manish?
So I'm going to give you two examples. One, every time I do a patient intake, whether it's as a life coach or whether it's as an occupational therapy, and I still do both because I still love both. Okay. I have my three fingers. Now, what it does allow me to do is get into that state of almost asking the right questions, the right flow of questions to get to the nitty gritty of what's going on with a patient. Frequently, I've heard patients tell me, I've been seeing doctors for 4 years trying to explain to them exactly what I feel and what's going on. And you are pretty much nailing it with every single question. And this is me in my flow state. This is me just trusting my intuition, right? Using three finger, but by having attuned to accurate intuition by using the case working and all of it. And that's the science behind it. And my other favorite story that I have to tell you is my very first class, I had a physician, a cardiologist, come to the class. And he came because his wife was a nurse practitioner. Who was all about it, read the book and knew about the Silva Method. And he was just basically following her because he didn't want to be alone for 4 days. And I tell you, Ken, I couldn't crack a smile from the guy for the first 2 hours. Okay. He was also a military vet from the Gulf War. Okay. Big guy. All right. PTSD. Anyway, and this is just the way it happens. We did the first long relaxed meditation, and the metronome we used, that ta 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 ta, well, it started to trigger some of his PTSD. He pulled me out, he pulled me aside, we talked, and I said, listen, you might want to just breathe. And I said to him, and you may want to just use EMDR, eye movement desensitization, when we started, just to simply, again, that explanation. It floods through the brain, the amygdala with delta waves, and continue to breathe and just flow with the meditation. He says, okay, I'm going to try it. I said, I can't turn it off, but try it. And if you need to leave, that's fine. I understand. Up until now, he was cold. We did that first meditation. And immediately after, I simply looked at him and I asked him, you okay?" And he said, "Oh my God, unbelievable." Afterwards in the break, he said, "I've never felt so good." At the end of the day, he says, "I've struggled with this PTSD for years, and I feel amazing. I already called my father in Fort Dix, who's some sort of general." He says, "Everybody needs to do this. Every military vet needs to do this." Obviously, it's challenging in this finances, but that brought him into everything. And then with the three finger technique, this gentleman has told me frequently, cardiologist, that he's been on the operating table, and he's a genius because what he started to do was he started to use the speed learning techniques to remember the charts, the medical charts. And then when he was in surgery, and if he had a patient coding, and it's happened to him several times, there's a team of surgeons and nurses, a patient's coding, he would quickly just go to level and he would remember something from the chart that might be triggering the anaphylactic shock or the allergic reaction, and he was able to then administer the right medication treatment and bring them back. And people would ask him, "How are you staying so calm? How are you remembering this stuff? How are you not freaking out?" And he's told them the Silva method, three finger technique. So this is how people are using it practically in their everyday. And Ken, I have been an ergonomist for years. I go and I used to teach people with respect to how to make sure they manage their body with ergonomics. And every ergonomist, chiropractor, therapist talks about wellness, mind, body, soul. And I can tell you with conviction that until I completed the Silva method and until I became an instructor, I truly was not able to complete that triangle of mind, body, soul. I was doing a lot of mind, body work, but I really wasn't connecting that soul and how it connection to life purpose, right? That's the soul work, that how to connect with your subconscious mind, that inner work is when you start to be able to live and work in a state of flow. So now, when I do my corporate workshops on wellness, I really feel that I'm most equipped to be able to do mind, body, soul, or the soul being the emotional intelligence, not just the mental intelligence.
I love that. I love and what you just said, if I may interject this, that's what happened in 2007, what I've affectionately called our Renaissance. We added more soul to the program. And people who took Silva even 50 years ago when they come through, this is what I hear them saying, oh my God, it's like Silva Method on steroids, if you would, for that. Love it. If I may just, for you who may be new to the Silva Method, it's not a secret handshake, the three fingers. Secret handshake. What it is the Silva Method is a step-by-step system of training. So we spend 40 hours of training developing various tools. And it's meditation based. We call it dynamic meditation, which means you can be thinking actively, processing, visualizing, and you can also just be passive and just bliss out. But once we're in that state and we're doing this all throughout all 4 days, we create an association to placing it could be anything, first two fingers and thumb. So that in situations where we're not able to close our eyes, it's not practical. Because of that, it's conditioning, basic conditioning. We're able to get back into that state more easily because because it was built in. So it's not magic just by doing this. It's something that people learn and we develop in the class. So you answered my question. I think that's so cool. The things that you can do now that you've done for your patients, and you've probably done some of this even before Silva, to add that component of really connecting with them, because often patients are not describing their symptoms correctly, or they don't understand, or they're confused, or they won't open up, or what have you. And that the key is asking questions. And a good part of intuition to improve your business, a relationship, your health, is to ask quality questions. And it takes intuition to know what questions to ask and in the sequence. So my point is it's all related. And oh wow, that's
Well, I mean, Ken, if I may, everybody loves the Steve Jobs story. Everybody loves the Zuckerberg story. everybody knows of the book Think and Grow Rich. In Think and Grow Rich, he talks about there's something special that a small portion of people do to capture 80% of the market. Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs traveled to India to learn meditation, not to find that place of peace, but actually to learn how to be in that peaceful state of mind, to learn intuition, because intuition is that which basically gives them the guidance to the flow state where most of the solutions that they create are correct, right? Our greatest inventors and mathematicians have also used those states of consciousness to get downloads. And this is, and now that can be used for your business, that can be used for the health. So when I got done and I used laboratory and counselors and start to connect, which I think, for me, it's a depiction of that double slit experiment, the famous double slit experiment. You are the observer. It's a practical technique that you get programmed to use, that you become the observer, that bends reality, right? Science is there, okay? And you then start to become the observer. And initially, it's all about observing the self. What to be able to get to that state with the intention of what is this knee pain mirroring? Which face is can I associate with it, or which sound can I associate it? What situation? And you get intuitive downloads in different forms, whether it be through dreams, whether it be just an image or a feeling that pops up, or somebody's name that pops up as soon as you come out of level, and you start to get the answers. And in those answers come your solutions. In those solutions come you starting to live in a state of flow, which is what we all want.
I would add also entrepreneurs, business innovators. If I can give a quick example, I heard this way back when Richard Nixon was president in the United States. During that period of time, entrepreneurs are always thinking ideas. The way the story goes, he's taking a shower and he has an idea of a new business to produce stuffed pandas, the panda bear. He brought it to his business partners, and logically they said, no way. We have more stuffed animals than we need in the market. No, there's not going to be a good ROI, return on the investment. The teddy bears really captured it, but something drove him. He didn't listen to them, even though they made sense logically. He went ahead, invested, started producing, getting them ready. And during that time, Richard Nixon went to China and made inroads and friendships with the government and brought back with him, how Americans are, a taste of China. And they donated to the zoo in Washington, D.C. and several other major zoos, pandas. And overnight, they became a sensation. Everybody wanted to see pandas. And guess what? His sales went through the roof. And that's what's fascinating. So he still did all the work, the business work, and everything that goes along with that. But it began with an idea. And I think your point about Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs is when we're attuned to this inner state, and when we can quiet ourselves enough and be an observer, we open ourselves up to getting ideas. And another way of saying that is, as you know, Manish, is the leading cause why people are not getting what they want, not manifesting, getting stuck, is because they're living in survival. They're living in stress mode. And when that happens, the primitive brain, the oldest part of the brain, takes over, and it's all about protection, no growth. And that's science. That's not theory, that's science. And then it kind of blocks us from our higher thinking functions, let alone intuition. So this beautiful flow state, there's a lot of people researching that, trying to make more sense so we can understand it. When we're in an alignment, let's say, with that energy, and that's why, to me, this is the most important part of, and big distinction, the Silva Method is our program. Everything we do are practical bonuses to take command of your life, to own your life, to be in command. And it's clearing a path to your higher self. So we are an intuition training in the pure sense of, I don't know anybody who does that. I know a lot of people, there's some beautiful people out there, very intuitive. They do some this and that, but this is a very specific focus that's been in over 110 countries, for 59 years now and still going with that. We could go on and on with that. And I think we better not for that.
I teach and you teach 4 days in a row, so we don't shut up with this.
I know. And we feel, sometimes I feel like I could use another four
I know.
days. You got to really train yourself to be concise. So for you who's still here with us, watching, listening, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot about you because frankly, it's not a quick fix. If you're looking for a quick fix, you're in the wrong place. Quick fix, I don't know that it exists. I think it's a lot of BS. Without saying anything more on that, it takes time. So it says a lot about you and your willingness to be open to the possibility that there's something more you could learn. So Manish, any closing thoughts or comments you'd like to make? And also, would you include how can people find you? Because he teaches, by the way, in central New Jersey, not too far from me, and Pennsylvania, around the Philly area in Pennsylvania. So could you parting thoughts, what you like to say, and how can we find you?
Parting thoughts is simple that it's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. It is for everybody, but it's not for everybody. The only thing that people, number one thing people ask me before a class is, what do I need to bring? What do I need to do? And I said, you need to bring the open you, right? The openness, be open, be receptive. I start my immersions with the scientific formula of Ohm's law because Jose Silva was a radio technician. I'm not going to get into it, but it is about flow state and resistance, removing the resistance and allow it. Simply allow it. Nobody needs to tell them. And the beauty about, I think, the Silva method is it allows for a space where people can be empowered to discover themselves, rediscover themselves. That's all. And that we have instructors all over the globe, and it's whoever you resonate with. People have so many different skills. My love is the science, the neuroscience. I love finding research and development articles that support our techniques. They're all there. Um, that's what I love, right? And that's my joy. And to deliver that success, to find me, silvamindset.com. Silvamindset.com is my website. Manish at silvamindset.com is my email. And my Instagram, where I do a lot of work, is mindset underscore coach underscore Manish. I'm open to any questions, even in for those of you that have stuck with us, myself and Ken, I thank you. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments. We love feedback, and if we can be of any assistance, that's what it's about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I just got to notice that I slipped my mind. I never plugged in my laptop, that the battery is low. So if we get cut off, that's what happened. That was beautiful. And I would like to add too, is really with the messages, you have it all. Silva Method's not giving you anything. It's just a system of tools and techniques for you to harness your own ability. You bring everything you need with you. Do not be fooled by anyone that they're giving you something special. It's a system, a proven system, step by step. And those of I'm speaking, if you've been through the training, remember you can come back for your lifetime. You pay a very small seat charge, and it gets better because you, as Manish said, you're more open. There's less resistance, and you hear it very differently. So you can find me, Silva Method of Connecticut or silvamethodct.com. I teach in the Chicago area in the suburbs and also here for New England in Connecticut, central with that. Plus, I do graduate work and travel around, but our passion is this 4-day program. So I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad that you're still here with us watching this. I look forward for sharing more. And Manish, again, thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it. So until the next time, folks, stay tuned because we're going to have some more of these conversations as we build on it. And as Jose would say, or used to say, may the rest of your life be the best of your life.
Better and better.